And welcome, Hoosier Nation, to our 77th episode of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for Indiana University sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Wednesday, February 27th, 2019, where I am your host this week, Matthew Lukens. And here with me tonight is the one, the only, Nithin Krishnan. Say hi, Nithin.
Hello, everyone.
He's here. He's ready to give interesting opinions like we always are. Anyway, if you want to see us live and participate in the ongoing chat, catch us Tuesday evenings at 8:30 p.m. on our YouTube page or our website. If you miss us for the live broadcast, you can subscribe to our show for free on whatever platform you listen to podcasts, so you can listen on your own time. Check out our Twitter and Facebook at The Hoosier Sound and at Indiana HQ, respectively, and subscribe. All the information is on our website, indianahq.com. All right, Hoosier Nation, it's time for some sports talk. And this week, it's in a happy edition of the Assembly Call after last night's win. Yes, on the docket tonight, even after a tough loss to Iowa, the Hoosiers somehow managed to find a way to beat number 19, Wisconsin. Yes, the Wisconsin Badgers at home last night in a what can only be described as a classic Big Ten game. We will talk about the game itself, how Indiana can move on from here and take something positive away from the remaining three games and the Big Ten tournament, if not more. So, first, let's talk about the game. Number 19, Wisconsin at home, 75-73 victory in double overtime, which is too many overtimes, if you ask me. But anyways, let's talk about this win, Nithin. So first off, opinions, just whatever you want.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, this has been pent up in me for like 20 hours or so. Well, first of all, what a stark contrast I think our conversation is going to be tonight compared to last week, where I wasn't able to join you guys, but you and Noah had just a real morbid sort of tone after we lost what was a hard-fought close game to Purdue. Well, you know, the shoe is on the other foot now, I guess, something like that. What a nice win. I mean, look, once again, you can look to the Purdue game, the Iowa game, or this game. It's 3 consecutive times now where IU has at least showed up to the fight. I think that was the biggest thing. They played 40, 45, actually 50 really tough minutes. And they didn't, you know, there were some moments there where they struggled, but overall, I think the intensity and the fight was there. And then comes the shot making and the play itself. And you know, Wisconsin's a really good team, you guys. Yeah, this is a team that shouldn't be shunned or something because they're not in the top 5. They're not Duke, okay. But that's a really good basketball team that, you know, they've had some really good wins this season, and even when they've lost, they've been close losses. Ethan Happ has tormented IU for years, and even though he put up some nice numbers overall yesterday, I thought IU did a good job in frustrating him. And what I loved most yesterday was, even though IU came out and started out of the gates fast, which I loved, the Hoosiers took a punch there late in the second half where it looked like things were slipping away, and they found a way to, you know, right the ship and get it to OT and win it from there. And I know it wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing game, but, you know, there were some signs there where even if IU doesn't make the NCAA tournament, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but there are some signs yesterday, and there are some signs that I've seen in the last week that things are progressing in the right direction. IU seems to have gotten some Assembly Hall swagger back. You know, whether it was that Purdue game where the fans were just going crazy, or the game yesterday where, you know, it wasn't exactly beautiful, but the fans were able to push IU at the end. You know, some other things. You know, I'm starting to see some of the role players develop more. I think we saw a huge performance yesterday out of Race Thompson. Wow. I mean, he defended Ethan Happ better than I saw an NBA guy in Thomas Bryant defending him. I mean, he was really good yesterday. And you talk about Al Durham continuing to get better and Rob Finney starting to, continuing to improve. Yep. So again, it was just a 2-point win in double overtime against a top 20 team, but positives are abound with this IU group.
I think the most glaring positive, other than the fact that it goes in the win column, which is something that is extremely rare to come by these days, was Race Thompson's play. Because Race Thompson, as a guy that's played 20 minutes all year, plays 21 minutes last night, and locked down Ethan Happ. I mean, absolute lockdown defending on Ethan Happ. And he's a freshman. This guy's a freshman. So when you people come to me in my mentions and tell me that IU's future is looking worse and worse by the minute, our three best players right now, I'm sorry, Jawan, but our three best players right now playing, and our three smartest players are all freshmen. Rob Finney, Romeo Langford, and you can add Race after that performance to that list of our three smartest players. I think Jawan would have been on that list, but every time he gets into foul trouble, it's like he can't stop fouling or putting his shoulder into people. But that's also just Wisconsin basketball, and the refs were awful. But anyways, yeah, great win. I had a wonderful time, let me tell you. It's a lot better than the last game at home, which was Purdue, which not only did we lose on a tip-in, but the famous shot where Matt Harms tips it in, my face is in the background like this, like hands over my nose, like, oh no, this is not happening. And then it's plastered all over Twitter. And then people send it in response negatively to IU tweets from a Purdue's perspective. And I can't even say anything because my face is there. So it's just unfortunate. But anyways, yes, this was a lot more fun. Romeo finally got a game winner to drop. I think he's probably had 3 or 4 chances up to now. One even in the game, one even in regular time during the game. Just for whatever reason didn't go in. Finally went down. It's great play call by Archie to make everybody go to the left. Just make Romeo drive to the right, get him on that right hand. Very subtle, like almost half screen by Rob Finney to create some separation for Romeo. And it was bedlam in there. Not as loud, though, as when Deron Davis hit that layup to make it a 2-point lead, because that was the loudest I've heard Assembly Hall this year and the loudest I've heard it in the last 2 or 3 years. So props to the crowd, even though it was at like 75% capacity. Hopefully we have better show out on Saturday. So Noah told me that we have to talk about how IU technically has 5 Quad-1 wins after last night's win. It was 6 at one point, but Butler sucks. So Butler dropped from Quad-1 to Quad-2. Darn it. But yeah, so there's not that many teams that have 5 to 6 Quad-1 wins, depending on how you look at it. Our 5 Quad-1 wins are as follow: Marquette, Penn State, Louisville, Michigan State, and Wisconsin. And you're like, maybe, Matt, Penn State's a Quad-1 win? Yeah, they're a Quad-1 win. I think did they beat Maryland tonight?
They crushed them. They won by 17.
Yeah, they absolutely destroyed Maryland tonight. And so there you go. They are a Quad-1 win. So any opinions on the fact that we have 14 losses and 5 Quad-1 wins?
Yes, I do. So first of all, I'm really happy that the NCAA has started to move away from sort of raw wins and losses as an evaluation method to some sort of objective mathematical standard that involves whether you play a team road, home, or neutral. How much do you beat them by? These things matter when you talk about evaluating tournament teams. And now I understand IU's record right now is worse than we would have expected it to be, especially given how November and December went. 14-14 usually doesn't get you in. If IU splits their remaining 4 regular season games, 16-16 probably usually doesn't get you in. But I saw a stat earlier today that blew my mind. And I don't know if you came across this on Twitter. It was mentioned by a Bleacher Report basketball writer named Kerry Miller. And the post was fascinating. It was that at this point in the season, there are 13 teams with at least 6 Quadrant 1 wins and no Quadrant 3 or 4 losses. Now, as you mentioned earlier, IU has 5 because Butler got pegged down. But remember, Butler can become a Quad 1 win if they win a couple more games down here. It's still kind of fluid. It's based on your current status, not your rating when you beat that team. But Kerry Miller's stat was there are 13 teams with 6 Quad 1 wins and 0 Quad 3 or 4 losses. 12 of the 13, and they're teams like Kansas and Duke and Kentucky, those teams are all comfortably in the tournament field. And then there's Indiana. And it's crazy. I mean, I don't know if this is precedented. I know Oklahoma is kind of a similar comparison to last year when they had Trae Young. But I use a team that has had some amazing wins this season. It's just the way it is. And you're saying, well, come on, you've got to think at least some other bubble teams have good wins. Well, look at a team like UCF. According to Joe Lunardi, I think he has UCF in the field. In fact, he has UCF as a bye. They're not even playing in one of those play-in games. UCF has 0 Quadrant 1 wins this year. They have a Quadrant 3 loss. And just to take a step back, if you're unaware, these quadrants that we're referring to are based on this net ranking methodology that the NCAA slowly started to adopt, where a Quadrant 1 win is a great win. Quadrant 2 is a good. Quadrant 3 is okay. Quadrant 4 is bad, and it adjusts for whether you play them at home or on the road. So IU this year hasn't lost to a bad team at home, and they haven't lost. They haven't lost to a bad team away, and they haven't even lost to an okay team at home. The worst team they lost to at home was Nebraska. So when you at the end of the like right now, I think a lot of public perception is, hey, IU, come on, 14-14, you got to be kidding me. But I think on St. Patrick's Day, the days leading up to March 17th, which is Selection Sunday, if IU's able to beat Michigan State, beat Illinois, which, by the way, on the road would be a nice feather in IU's cap, and maybe steal a game in the Big Ten tournament, I think the selection committee's got to sit down and take a long, hard look at whether the Hoosiers belong in the field.
I'd rather feel a little bit more comfortable by getting more than 1 win in the Big Ten tournament, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, or win the whole damn thing. But that's besides the point. But yeah, I think great point, Nithin. I actually saw that tweet too, and I was like, yeah, I've seen that. But yeah, this has been the weirdest season that I can remember. Actually, I'm gonna throw in a question that we had on Twitter here, but it was Rob asked, if Race doesn't have his concussion, what is IU basketball's record? And I think it's fair to say that I can take this question and add another question: is if Deron Davis isn't injured and Jerome Hunter isn't injured, what does this season look like? Because we already have 5 to 6 Quad 1 wins, and we've been missing 2 of our 3 best freshmen. And then we were missing our now is apparently a stud of a center. And we've been missing them all year. So, I mean, I think it's fair to say that with them, we'd be at least 5 to 6 games to the good. I think you can mark down the Arkansas game probably going better, especially with Race Thompson's ability to play post defense. I think you can look at both Iowa games as maybe a different outcome, especially with Race playing against not Peter Jock. Is it Peter Jock? Man,
Jordan Bohannon or
no, not Jordan Bohannon. Tyler Cook. Tyler Cook. All right, Tyler Cook playing post defense on Tyler Cook. Definitely, and because Iowa plays through him pretty well. You can probably chalk both those games probably to being a win. And then you can even look at games like maybe even the Michigan game away, where Teskey was giving us all we could handle. right? And having a very good post defender and somebody that can shoot the three on the court that spaces the floor better than, Justin Smith would have been pivotal in that game. So I could definitely see this team being 5 or 6 games to the good. And then we're not only firmly in the tournament at that point, but we're a very good seed with 5 to 6 less wins. That puts us at what, 19-9 with 5 to 6 less wins. So, I mean, hey, hindsight's 2020, but I think Nithin's got something to say.
No, and I didn't want to interrupt because
please interrupt me.
I agreed with what you were saying, but to that note, it's not so much that it's not just a benefit to have an extra guy or two coming off your bench and playing, but it also means a guy like Juwan Morgan or Justin Smith or even Romeo Langford, for what it's worth. Those guys don't have to exert themselves so much. So not only do you get that contribution from a bench guy, but now you can give some of your players that are out there longer some additional rest, which, come on, in this year in the Big Ten, that's invaluable.
Yep. I also thought of another one. Maybe even the Maryland game away is a different outcome. Somebody that can guard Jalen Smith or Bruno Fernando, but it's nice that we have them now, because when we look forward to the next game, a team that we won against, Michigan State. So Michigan State's coming to town on Saturday. Of course, we all know we beat them in East Lansing, which of course we did because this season is so upside down. It's crazy. Even the producers of, oh my God, brain fart. Oh, well. A producer of a Netflix show would throw it away. Anyways, so Michigan State's coming into town. It's Saturday, 12 p.m. on Fox. Noah will be at the game, and it's his birthday, so the Hoosiers better pull through. So, opening thoughts on Michigan State, Nithin.
Well, they're going to come in angry. That's a team that obviously, like you mentioned, IU beat a few weeks ago. But you're hoping IU is going to play desperate. I would imagine that the Hoosiers won't rest on the glory of winning one Big Ten game against a top 25 team. The Spartans are going to come in pretty angry and ready to go. Now, at the same time, you got to realize that they don't have Nick Ward. They don't have Xavier Tillman. They don't have Josh Langford. Tillman's fine, but they don't have Ward or Langford. So we are talking about an MSU team that is banged up. And they are coming off a real exhauster of a game against Michigan over the weekend. Now, they're going to have a few days of rest going into this game at Assembly Hall on Saturday. But MSU is a tough team. They hit their free throws, even though obviously we saw them. And now, the funny thing is they struggle against us. But in general, you got to think, in that game, it was Nick Ward. He won't be available in this one. They lead the conference in free throw percentage, as crazy as that sounds. It's just a team that's going to push you to the limit. But hey, that's how every game's been in the conference this year. So what else is new?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm looking at the box score for the last game we played, and Justin Smith had double digits. Romeo Langford had double digits. Al had double digits. Devontae had double digits. Deron had double digits scoring. That's 5 players that had more than 10 points. Romeo had almost 20. Granted, it was an overtime game, so stats do get a little bit inflated. But, I mean, we're going to need that scoring again. We're going to need Devontae to hit a couple big threes like he did and not foul people on 3-point attempts in overtime. We're going to need Al to hit some big threes like he did last game and has been. We're going to need Romeo to be at his best again. Getting Juwan for more than 13 minutes this time is probably going to be pivotal. Justin Smith playing 35 minutes, getting a double-double is we're probably going to need that again. And then we're going to need to give Race Thompson is going to need to play at least 10 minutes, just like Jake Forrester did, and hopefully not foul out, because the people he's going to be fouling are going to be better free throw shooters than Nick Ward was. And we can't afford to put the #1 free throw shooting team in the conference at the line, even though we are the number one free throw defense in the country. So take that as you will.
Something's gotta give.
I have no idea how we are the number one free throw shooting defense. What even is free throw shooting defense? How does one even be defensive against free throws? I don't know. Maybe it's the crowd, me waving my saxophone around.
That's part of it, but I do think there is some value in basketball to fouling bad free throw shooters.
Yeah.
For example, let's take Ethan Happ in the game we saw yesterday. He's a horrendous free throw shooter. I think 44% or something like that. When he's in the post, if you've got a guy that can give some fouls away, if maybe it's just one or two during the game, hack him, make him go to the line, and all of a sudden, instead of getting a couple easier points inside, Happ or Ward or someone else would be forced to getting them from the free throw line. So I think there's some way you can sort of manipulate that number to help your team. But now, am I crazy? Like, is this? Let's say IU wins on Saturday.
Okay,
they'll be 15-14 still. Again, not the most impressive record in the country. The selection committee has to take a look at the Hoosiers, right? Or is it no chance, game over?
They have to take a look at us. It's no chance, game over if we lose both of the Illinois and Rutgers games. But I think we can split one of the two of those and still get 2 or 3 wins in the Big Ten tournament. Be okay. We win both, then we only really need 1 or 2 wins in the Big Ten tournament to probably get in a play-in game, which is fine. I totally believe that this team playing against a team from any other conference is going to win that game and or give them all that they can handle, because the Big Ten is absolutely insane this year. And it's unfortunate that Romeo's here this year for a Big Ten that is as tough as it is this year. It's really unfortunate. But we got another question for you, Nithin, which is, who won the week? What IU sport won the week this week?
It's a good question. Obviously, the win over Wisconsin was great for the men's team yesterday, but I'm going to keep it rolling with the softball team. I mean, I think it's the 3rd week in a row they've won the week here, and who can blame them? I mean, they've continued this remarkable run where they've stayed undefeated. They continued with a couple of big wins over the week, and they're 14-0. That's just incomprehensible, and it includes a winner over a top 10 team earlier this season in Georgia. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, it's really tough for teams in the Big Ten or the MAC, conferences in the Midwest and cold weather areas to experience much success in college baseball or college softball, just because it's tough. A lot of the top players in the nation want to go play west or in the south where it's nice and warm. This IU softball team, though, they've got some toughness to them, and they're 14-0. They keep things going this weekend. They face LSU, number 10 in the country, on Friday night. If they win that one, holy cow, we really might have something special going on.
Yep, I agree. There is actually palpable buzz on campus for the softball team, so take that as you will. All right, moving on to our questions. So I'll do this pitch. And it's not where we normally do it. But anyways, I'm going to do it anyways. If you have questions, send them in to us. Tweet them at me. Tweet them at Indiana HQ. Tweet them at Noah. Tweet them at Nithin. Send them on Facebook. Text me. Send a carrier pigeon. Whatever. We will get your questions on air. We love answering your questions. So first question, FXF Hoops, Frame by Frames Hoops. With regards to the bubble, who are we supposed to cheer for and against in the remaining of the season? And so I will take the who to cheer against for, and that is everybody that is on the bubble. If there's a team on the bubble, you want them to lose every single remaining game they have. I don't care if it's against Duke. I don't care if it's against Purdue. You want them to lose. So there you go. There's your answer.
Well, and I'll add to that. Even, the one exception there sort of is Butler. Because even though they're on the bubble, I think IU fans do want Butler to keep winning, especially on Saturday when they take on Villanova. But I'll answer the other half of that question. For teams that you want to root for, I'm circling these powerhouse dominating teams in smaller conferences. Teams like Gonzaga and Nevada and Buffalo. Conference tournaments start next week, and they continue up until Selection Sunday. IU fans need to hold watch parties and get-togethers to root on for Gonzaga and Buffalo and Nevada and Wofford out of the Southern Conference, because if those teams win their conference tournament, that ensures at-large bids don't go to those schools, because those 4 teams that I mentioned, for example, including Wofford, the Terriers having a great year, those schools are going to get in as an at-large even if they lose in their conference tournament. So IU fans, again, if you're done studying for the day, hang out at wherever you want, Kilroy's, Knicks, wherever, at a friend's place, and watch the West Coast Conference Tournament next week and buy Gonzaga gear online and put on a Bulldog mask, because IU needs those teams to win to make sure those at-large bids can go to a school like the Hoosiers, who need all the help they can get.
Absolutely. Also, Gonzaga is my pick to win the national championship this year, so go Zags. Wow. Anyways, yeah, I know. A little controversial. All right. Biz coach JKR asks, who's staying? So I guess that's about the basketball team and who's transferring and who's not. You got any insight on that?
I guess the easier question kind of is who might not be staying, right? Because I think it's a smaller number. It's going to be interesting. Look, seniors are Evan Fitzner and Jawan Morgan. They're going to have a speech on senior night, and I think Romeo Langford is probably a one and done. So you have those 3 guys. There, and then you get into transfers, and that's where it's a real gray area. I'm not sure of the other guys on the team right now who's thinking of leaving or who's thinking of maybe leaving. I don't know. I have no idea. I guess I hate to name names, but a guy like Clifton Moore has seen his minutes decrease over the last few weeks. I'm not sure if Demizi Anderson or I don't know. I have no clue. Again, a lot of these things could just be first or second year adjustments that these guys are making. So it's tough to say, but I think those 3 guys are probably going. Armand Franklin and Trace Jackson Davis are coming in. And then you kind of have one more spot, and it'll be fun to see who that goes to. I know a lot of IU fans are probably rooting for Keon Brooks.
I'm also rooting for Keon Brooks. And, of course, you can go check out IndianaHQ.com, where we have full coverage of recruiting. And you can check out on who else we're looking at, people like Harlan Beverly and Lester Quiones. I don't know how to spell say his last name, and I think I just butchered it. But go take a shot at IndianaHQ.com. Anyways, Joel, earlier in the year, Archie had talked about the importance of having a deep bench. Can you maybe speak to how Archie not benching guys earlier in the year has led to the development later on? Green and Smith being benched recently may be due to a deep bench. So I'll take this question, which is that I think he talked about having a deep bench, but we actually haven't had a deep bench. I think we finally now have a deep bench because of injuries. We've been dealing with injuries since game 1, whether it's Zach McRoberts being out or it's Duran being out, or Race Thompson didn't even play basically until the Minnesota game, had 22 minutes all year. We have been without Jerome Hunter, who was supposed to be a major part of this team. We had we're without Devontae Green for a couple games. There is a smaller list of people who haven't had injuries this year than there is the people who have had injuries this year. And that's what we've been dealing with. So I don't think it's the fact that we've had a deep bench. I think it's the fact that we've had to throw people on the court that weren't ready, and that has led to their development. And the fact that we have people who have actually had playing time allows us to go, okay, well, this isn't the best matchup for Justin Smith, who can't shoot. So let's put somebody like Race Thompson, who's actually probably a better threat from 3 than Justin is. Or, Devontae isn't great playing as a point guard here. Let's take Devontae off and let's run the point through Romeo or Jawan. the ability to mix and match is thanks to the fact that we've actually had a rough season as far as injuries, and not the fact that we've had a deep bench all year.
I completely agree with what you're saying. It's funny that you mentioned the list of guys that are probably shorter who have not gotten hurt. And I think you're right, because I'm scrolling through our roster right now. I think the guys that have managed to stay healthy all year are Evan Fitzner, Devontae Green, but he got suspended. Then there's Justin Smith, Al Durham. But even remember, Langford has had a couple games where he's been banged up. And of course, that game against Purdue, he was puking after halftime, which that couldn't have been any fun. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy how snake-bitten IU's been with the injuries. But as you and I remember hearing Don Fisher, he had mentioned in an interview, he was talking to one of IU's assistants after they beat Michigan State, and he had talked to that assistant. I don't remember if it was Bruiser Flynn or Tom Ostrom or who it was, but Fisher told the assistant, he's like, "Hey, great win. You guys look like a whole different team out there." And the guy said, "Well, yeah, we were a different team because we had Deron Davis and Devontae Green available." And this is something to me that's more important than making the tournament. Are individual players developing, and I think we're slowly starting to see that. I briefly mentioned it earlier, but whether it's Robert Finney continuing to attack more, or Al Durham continuing to improve, or Race Thompson emerging like he has in the last couple of games, I don't know if IU's going to make it. They probably have a small % chance of getting into the big dance, but whether it's in the regular season or the conference tournament or the NIT or the NCAA tournament or whatever, what I want to see most are these individual players getting better and coming together as a team.
Yeah, and this is actually perfect segue into our next question from Joel, which is, what in your mind is the most important goals in these last few remaining games? Archie has held the team together when most teams would have folded and should receive some credit. I absolutely agree with that last part. I think if this was a Tom Crean team, not only would we have lost last night's game, but we would have lost the game at Michigan State as well, because, we never won at Michigan State with Tom Crean, except for when Oladipo was there. But that's another story. But anyways, if it was a Tom Crean team, we'd still be on like a 15-game losing streak, because I think Archie has a ability to motivate guys that all the great coaches have, and I think Archie deserves a lot of credit for that. And keeping the team together, even through some of these tough losses. Trust me, if we feel how tough they are, imagine what the players feel like, especially after the Purdue game and both Iowa games. Like, it's just been devastating the last couple of weeks. We've been so close to getting our season back on track, and every time it's just like one misplay, one crazy hot shooter, and all of a sudden, we've lost the game. And you can go back even to the Northwestern game. Same thing happened there, right? Like, this team has just been, it feels like snake bitten, and the fact that Archie has kept them together has been great for the team. To answer the first part of the question, which was, what is their most important goals? Win every game that you possibly can. That's it. And second goal is get the younger guys more playing time, because as much as I love Juwan's not going to be here next year, and Fitzner isn't either. And if Fitzner isn't hitting his shots and he's having a rough time out there, I'd rather see Race Thompson play. I'd rather see Jake Forrester play. I'd rather see Demezy Anderson play. Even if they're not playing as well as Fitzner, I'd rather see them play, because they will be here next year, and every minute that they can get on the court is extremely valuable to their development as a player, and could really benefit us, 2 or 3 years down the line.
Yeah, I wanted to shout out Joel, by the way. He's chatting over on our YouTube page, and I recommend all of you guys who are listening join Joel either tonight or down the road, because we always want to hear what you guys have to say. But I agree. I mean, look, it's as simple as as you can get, right? Try get those wins if you're gonna, and in addition to winning, try to do it with some style points, because that's what the selection committee is looking for. If you can beat a team like Illinois on the road by 10 or 12 points, that'll look good. If you can beat a team like Northwestern in the Big Ten tournament by 15, try to do that. It's really, IU's got their backs up against the wall, but they've got some breathing room after their win yesterday. As you mentioned, and as we talked about, the player development is so important because, next year, a guy like Grace Thompson is going to be in his third year in Archie Miller's system. And we really are looking forward to seeing that sort of acceleration next year. And how about, Rob Finnessy, who will be in year 2 next season? I know we all like to get excited talking about freshmen, but, that continuity is what makes teams like Wisconsin and Purdue and North Carolina so dangerous. Okay, they do have a couple one-and-dones here and there, but that continuity is so tough to defeat. Michigan State is probably another team I should have included in that list. It's really tough to beat teams that have that sort of, consistency year over year.
Yes, I completely agree. I don't think I could agree more. All right, Noah, last question. Everyone wants to know, can IU get into the postseason? So I'll take it first. And there's a little story behind this one. Somebody asked me what were the chances of us beating Michigan State, and I said that you have a better chance of walking on the moon than us beating Michigan State. So I'm going to just echo that statement and say that you have a better chance of walking on the moon than us making the tournament, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's tough. Look, I do think IU, as long as they finish 500, is probably a lock for the NIT. I know sometimes they don't like to include teams that finish below 500. I don't think it's a hard and fast rule, but I think that's sort of a soft kind of measure that they have. But as far as the NCAA tournament goes, look, I get it. Again, we've talked about this here and there. I get it. The record is ugly, but the wins matter. At some point, the selection committee's got to realize that IU's beaten some great teams. And I want to add this component to it. Not only have they beaten those teams in Quad-1, like you talked about earlier, Matt, they've actually, as crazy as this sounds, I know people are going to get angry and upset when I say this, but they've avoided the horrible loss this year. And again, I know it's weird. You're like, how the heck can you say they've avoided a horrible loss when they lost to Minnesota by 20 or whatever that was? But as far as the strength of the teams they faced, even losing at Minnesota was a Quad-1 loss, and again, when you talk about a bubble team like UCF or even a great team like Nevada, those teams have had Quad 3 or 4 losses. They've lost to okay or bad teams at home, or they've lost to bad teams on the road. That's what Nevada did when they lost at New Mexico. Again, and that's nothing to hold against those teams. But for IU to have actually not only racked up these Quad-1 wins, but avoided sort of a really bad loss, whether it was a non-conference year, even this, like, I don't know, at Rutgers, how can at Rutgers be not a horrible loss? Well, it isn't. And that's what I like so much about the net rankings. It sort of strips away those connotations and those reputations that certain bad teams have had over the years. This year, losing at Rutgers, while we would have liked to avoid it, it's still a Quad 2 loss. Rutgers is an okay team by most metrics. They're not great. They're not horrible. So,
yep.
I think it's going to be a fascinating case study, especially if IU knocks off Michigan State on Saturday, and maybe IU trips up Purdue or Michigan in the Big Ten tournament. I think the selection committee's got to take a long, hard look at the Hoosiers, who, again, have racked up 5 Quad-1 wins. If Butler knocks off Villanova or wins a handful of games down the stretch, Butler would move up to Quad-1. That would give us a 6th. Then if you had Michigan State or Purdue or Michigan or maybe Wisconsin again or third time against Iowa, that's another Quad-1 win. I mean, at some point, seeing that IU's capable enough of beating these great teams has to convince these people on the selection committee that, hey, if they're good enough to beat good teams, I understand they've got some losses, but why not?
Right. And I think that's the perfect point to end this episode. So That about wraps it up for our 77th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. But Noah will be back this Friday for another edition of the Hoosier Sound Off. Thank you for our live audience coming out and participating in the chat and, suffering through me reading a script. Make sure to stay tuned through updates on Twitter at the Hoosier Sound. Subscribe to us on YouTube or however you listen to the podcast, and visit our website at indianahq.com to find information in one place. As always, send us your questions. As the audience, be sure to comment, chat, or send us a message at admin@indianahq.com on what questions you have, and we'll have them on our next episode. Lastly, if you've enjoyed our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and see you next time. Peace.